And so why wait more? Let's get started. So for today's speaker, we have Debajit Malik. He has 1+ year of professional experience in front-end development. He loves participating in hackathons and open source, and he's part of various communities. So over to you, Debajit. Looking forward to learn great lessons from you.
Thank you, Tejas. So today's event is all about how to get started with React. So we are basically starting from very basics. So for people who are just learn how to write simple HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. This is the fundamental requirement before learning React. So let's get started then. Okay, so I started sharing my screen. Tell me, is it visible or not? Is my screen is visible?
Yes, it is to me. Audience, can you share it in the chat? Great. Yeah, Abhijit just said yes. So let's start.
Okay. So my introduction. So currently I am working at a startup named Black Spectrum, and the main tech stacks that I used in my day-to-day job are like React and Vue. So I also know how to work with Vue also. So in today's event, it's all about React, but I don't only touch React. I also tell about what are the other frameworks that are present in the market right now. So these are the table of contents that we are going to discuss today. So let's start. So there are some of the prerequisites. So if you want to learn some of the things, then you need to know the basics first. In React, there is a fundamental difference. You understand what is first. You need to understand what is a library and what is a framework. So what is a library? Library, you can think of it, it's a small thing. So in if we compare libraries and frameworks, then library is comparatively small in size and it's modular. So you can just add it into your any existing front-end project and you can just go and start building it. And framework is comparatively larger in size. It provides you more helper functions and things stuff. So they both are like programs. You can think of it like framework provides you more functionalities and libraries provide you compared to less functionalities. So you need to use additional libraries to work with that. And why it is understanding this is important, you just uh, in this thing you understand that. So there are, we know that we are going to discuss about React, but what are the other popular things that are present in the market for front-end development? So if you just Google it, you get three results at the top. One is a React, another one is a Vue, another one is a Angular. So React is basically here in both three of them, between three of them, React and Angular are built by tech giant companies. Like React is developed by Facebook, Angular is developed by Google, but Vue is simply developed by a open source developer named Ivan Yu. He's also a Google software engineer earlier. So but between three of them, the one thing that makes React different is React is a library and Vue and Angular are frameworks. So the thing is React is always smaller in size. So you can just take it and use it anywhere. Another thing is React is right now the most popular library in the market. So it's best time to get started with React. Now, first of all, we need to understand what one thing, what is React? So uh, React is declarative, component based, learn once, write anywhere in nature. So first we need to understand why we need to learn React, because we know HTML, CSS, and we know JavaScript. We can create websites. So what is the advantage of writing in React? So there are, first thing is how we need to understand how simple websites work. So how it works when you just so earlier what happens, when you are just put an URL in Google and press the enter button, you just hit a server where all the files, all the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript of that particular website are hosted. You hit that server and the server gives you all the HTML and CSS code for that particular page. If you build a portfolio site, then you have a index HTML or main.html page. where this is the front page of your portfolio site. So like it gives you that index.html page and all the links, CSS and JavaScript files with it. But what problems it takes, like when you click that about link, it takes you the about.html page, and what it does, it makes another request to the server and it throws that about.html page, and this thing takes a time, takes a lot of time. So this is something that how the standard websites are working. This is one problem. Another problem is like the that which React solved, that is a component based. So like simply thought of like a card. In any website, you saw many cards or many things, many cards. So like when you write a card, you what you have to do, you have to use something like Bootstrap, or you create a card, HTML for a card, and you for like so like think of it like the product section of Flipkart. Let's think of it. So in the product section of Flipkart, you will see many products listed. So like for that to create, you have to create each HTML cards and just change the name of the products, change the pricing, and if there are hundreds of projects, you have to write that hundred of cards. So React solved this second thing using something known as component, and that is why React is called component based. And the first thing is like why React is already a great thing, because uses it used to create something known as SPA, that is single page applications. What is single page applications? Like what I said earlier, like when you click on that about page, it create another request to the server, and the server throws you that about.html page or with that about.css and whatever stuff that's back with it. What React does, it uses something known as a webpack, and what it does, you write the HTML code inside React, and when you just hit the URL, it sends all the HTML, CSS, JavaScript at a time to you. And when you click that about page, about link, you feel like you go to something or some slash about like the www something that .com/about. But what it does, does not make any request to the server. All the data is previously present. So at the start of when you hit the server, it gives all the code for that about.html to you on that time already. So like you don't make any server request then, and you just get all the data in browser at a time. So it's much faster. Like if you anyone of it, so like we already use Netflix and Facebook, all of them are this type of single page applications. So that's why they are work so much fast in the web right now. And if you just visit any website in the earlier days, you can find that when you click that about page or something, it takes a lot of time, and there is so much loading happens. So that is why React is like component based, and React uses in creating single page application. Why there is a learn one right anywhere? Because like we can create a component, and that we can use it anywhere in the project. That is another thing. So like let's start with React. So like first of all, there is something known as create React app. First of all, there are some of the dependencies you need to install in your system before learning React. First one is Node.js. So like let's minimize the thing. So one thing is Node.js. So this needs to be installed in your system. So like without Node, React is not able to work in your system, and you have to so like always try to install that LTS version, because this current version has more like features, but sometimes there are some of the errors and the dependency problem. So like it's always better to go with the LTS version. So like you just need to click it and download it and just go next, I agree, and that's it. After installing that, so like I'll show you how to test it. So like open your terminal and then just write node-v. What it does, it simply gives you the version number, returns you the version number of node that is installed in your system. So like my node version is 16.13. Another thing is like when you install node, another thing is installed in your system, that is npm. And when you check that npm-v, it will gives you also another number, that is the version number of npm. What is npm? We don't go deeper into these topics, but npm is basically the node package manager. So like React is also a package. So like we need to use npm to install all the packages here also. So after installing this Node.js, uh, what you have to do then another thing is create React app. And what it does, you have to first install create React app in your system. So how to install create React app? Just I will show that also. Create. So there is a package known as create React app. You need to install it in your system. So this is the website. You can go there and just follow the instructions. Uh, After that, so this is the just two dependencies that we need to start with a React project. So like let's start. So like I will show you how to do it. So like I just go to cd desktop, and now I am going to create. So the command that is used to create a React template. So like if you can also just add some of the React links and started with it, but the best way is to create use create React app to create the basic template of React. How do we do that? So like we are just using npx create.
Hey
Yeah.
Debajit,
Yes.
can you increase the font size or and the window size of
Okay. Okay.
this
Okay.
so people will be better able to see?
Is it visible now?
Ah, yeah, it's better. You can increase more, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, great.
Okay. So like that is npx create React app, and after that you have to just follow this syntax. And after that you have to write the name of the app. And there are some of the conventions that you also need to follow for your project name. First is that it needs to be in small letter, and another thing is that you just for separation of words you just need to use dash. So like if I am creating an app like my app or like counter dash app, so that is how I separate the words. So like after writing enter, so like it takes some time at first to create the boilerplate for you. Mm, let's wait for some seconds. Okay, so like now to check that this folder is present or not, you just use ls, and there is a project name that is counter app. So like go to cd counter app, and then I just write that code space dot. What it does simply, it opens that project into VS Code in my VS Code. So like my project is open now, and now if I just open my terminal, and there is a command. So like you can find there is a command that is npm start. It helps us to start the React project, and it simply starts the project here in the localhost 3000. So there is a basic port that React is used. Yeah. 1 second. So like okay, no, it's good. So like it hosted in localhost. It runs on localhost 3000. Now for at first we are going to, so that is first we are going to understand what is the structure of the project in React whenever we create a new project. So like the step is npx create React app and whatever the name of the project. Then the project is going to start it, created, and you just go into the cd and insert the folder, and then you just write npm start, and the project is started in localhost 3000. Okay. Now there are many folders and files here. One is a readme.md. So like readme.md is nothing, just it's a documentation file. So like how to start React and stuff. So like this is written here. Then there is a thing known as a package.json. And what the package.json does, so like if you have earlier worked with Node.js, you know about that. It simply provide a JSON, and what the JSON does, it fills with all the dependencies, the scripts that are needed. So like I write npm start to start the React project. This is written here. So like how I know about that, this is written here. The scripts, and the start is for like React script start, and for build we are going to use like this build, and there is a test, and there is eject. So like you just need to know about the start at first. You don't need to know about other commands at the first. So there are in the dependencies, these are not that much required. You just need to see that there is a package I told you earlier, that is a library. React is a library, so this is React. So like in the dependencies we found that React is a version also written here, that is 17.02. React only needs three things to run. One is React DOM, and React script. These are the most essential three things that are help us to write React code. So like if you just have any HTML CSS project and you just add these three dependencies here, and you add your React code, that will simply works also. So there is a package log.json. I'm not going to tell about that also. So this is like more concentrated version of package.json. So like it's written simply, and it's more verbose. So it puts more restriction. So like you don't need to know about that. In the git ignore, so like the people who know about git, so they know about that. So like what git ignore does, if I just push that project to GitHub, so there are some other things I don't want to push on GitHub. That is, one is node module. So like there's a .pnp, so like the build folder, the .env files, so these are present in .git ignore. So you have to write a git ignore file just to put only the Node.js, because you don't want to push your Node.js on GitHub. Now there are two parts. So node modules is something that is so all the more code for the React and other libraries are put inside that. So base thing is don't touch node modules. This is the suggestion that I want to give. Then there are two parts. One is a source and one is a public. So in the public we have, there's a favicons, then index, then logo. So this is the main thing that we need to understand. That is the index.html. So like if you know bare minimum HTML, you will understand that it's very simple HTML. So like there is some of the meta tags, link tag. So this is a title, that is the React tab. You can see here. The main thing that we need to understand, that div ID root, what it is, and it is the entry point of React. It is all the things that you need to understand at first in React, like how it works. So like this, there is a div tag which has an ID of root. Okay. So in the source folder, there are many files, but we don't need that much files. So like what I can do for simplicity, I just delete what are the files that are not required. So like this setup, report, there's a logo, this app.test, all the things I'm just going to delete. And the project is going to crash right now. Okay. So like in the index.html, index.js, okay, let's delete all the things.
Yeah, hey Debajit, can you increase the font size again in the
Okay,
VS Code? Yeah,
is it
great.
visible now?
Looks great.
Oh. So like in the app.js there is something logo. Okay, so like now there is only 4 files. So like whatever the things that are unnecessary, I just deleted them. Now what, there are so much mumbo jumbo code there, so like I just comment out there. Now we are just gonna learn how to write it from very basics and scratch. So what we see earlier, that we have something known as like this div, and this div has a ID of root. So if you just see the index.html, there is nothing written inside the body, just a div with an ID of root. That is whatever written in the index.html. So like what we are going to do, we are just simply import React from React, and then import React DOM from React DOM. Okay. Now we need these two things in order to start the React project. And what this React DOM does, so like React uses something known as a virtual DOM to create the all the thing, and this has a function called render function. And what this render function does, it takes two parameters. First parameter is simply any HTML tag or any component, what we call known as a React component, which it can shows inside, which it can shows inside that div ID root. Okay, so first off, what we want to show here, just let's take this app. And how to call any component in React, the way is simply write an HTML tag, and you can just end it like that. So like how we write HTML, like if there is any self-closing tag, how we write that, this is simply the way how we can call a component. Okay, and for the first parameter is the component, and the second parameter is the where we want to insert that component. Where we want to insert, we want to insert that component inside this div ID root. Okay, so like the way is how we write JavaScript, how we insert something in JavaScript. So like document, then get element by ID, and what is the ID we want to insert? There is a root. If we just run that, these things run. So like what this line does, we are simply telling React that just take that div document.getElement by ID, that root. So just put that app component inside this root. We are just telling React that. Okay, and now what is this app? So in React, what we can do, we can create something known as a component. I told earlier, like React is component based. So that is we use something known as a component, and we are just simply call that component here. And inside, how we can create a component? First of all, just let's comment it out. Okay, how we can create a component? So to create a component, we just need to create a function. So first, I'm going to tell something about component. So like, what is a component? Component is like a simple function. What is a function? So like simple, what you do when you create a sum function, you just call that sum function every time you want to sum the numbers. Same way, we are just create a function. So like in React, we are creating a function, and the name of the function that we are called here is the app. What is the name of the function? That is the app. Like the name of the function is app, and this function is going to return some HTML. Okay, so here what we you maybe think like how it's possible, like I am putting HTML inside like JavaScript, but this is how React works. So this is a syntax which is called as JSX. React uses something known as JSX syntax, which helps us to do that. So this returns, what it returns, it only returns one child, one element. So like let's thought like it going to return one div, and this div has something known as like hello world. If I'm going to do that, it also throws some error because there are no export. So like if you know bare minimum JavaScript of ES6, you know that when you want to use any function or any variable or any function outside of that that file, then you need to export it. So like just go, I go to export, and this is a default export and app. Let's run it, and you find that this hello world is there. So just understand what it is, what it does. So like I am simply create a JavaScript function, simple JavaScript function, and what is going to return? It returns something, some of the HTMLs, and this function is exported from this app file and imported from this index.js. And what this index.js does, it takes that function, calls this as like a component, is simply a component, and register it or put it inside that div id root. So is it clear for everyone? Okay, then let's get into it. Another thing is like you don't able to return multiple HTML elements. So like what I mean by that is, so like there is one div. If you want to return another div, that is not going to possible. Why? Because this is a simple function concept. You cannot return two things from a function. The function is going to return only one thing. So how then we are going to return multiple things? So the way is just we return one div or something, whatever you want to return, and inside that I can write as much as things that I want. So like if I want like return one h1, so this is one h1, and then I want to return some of the paragraphs also. So like this is the way how we can write multiple HTML tags, return multiple HTML for a function. Okay, so this is how we are going to do that. So this is one way of writing a function. If you know how to write arrow functions in JavaScript, or if you have the basic knowledge of how to write an arrow function. So why I'm going to show that, because most of the React developers don't use this function and this keyword syntax. They always use the like arrow function syntax. So how they are going to do that, right? So like they are writing this thing like const app, and then we are simply doing the arrow function, and this returns this. This is same as like writing function app and then the bracket and in the curly braces. That, so like this is not a React concept. So like that is why I told earlier that you need to know basic of JavaScript and ES6 basics to start it with React. So that is how we are writing components in React. So this is like one thing. Now another is how we can create components, our own components. So like the standard convention is we are going to create a folder component. So like you can just write in component file, but the best way is to create another folder named components, and within that put all the files. So components, and within that components file folder I am creating a component. So like let's think about a component like card. And another thing, like there are, if you see the documentation in other places, there are some of the places where you can find that some of the developers use .jasx in place of .js. You can do that also, but most of the developers prefer .js. So like so that makes no difference at all. Like if you just use .jsx or .js, that makes no difference at all. And another thing is the convention is to start with capital letter for any component. Okay, so like if you are going to use a card component create, then the name starts with C, or the heading that starts with H. Okay, so this is a card. So like let's create another component. How we can gonna create a component? The same way, the const, and there is a card, and then we are just simply writing an arrow function. If you don't know about arrow function, you just so like okay, let's show it. So like there's a return statement, and then after that I have a div, and this div has, so like taken h1 and then make it, call it card, and then there is a what we're going to do. We are just default export that. What is the meaning of default export is that we are just by default, so if anything is exported from this file, that is going to be this card component. So this card, okay. This is the how we create a card component. So like if you don't familiar with the syntax, you can just go with the earlier syntax also. So like what I show earlier, like function, then the card, then what it's going to return? It returns something like dev, and this is going to return something like issued. So this is same as that. So like whatever you are comfortable with, just use that at first. Okay. Then what we are going to do, we are just create that card component, and we are going to need to import it into the app component. How we are going to do that? So like just remove all the things. We are going to import this card component from where we are going to import, like dot slash this components and then slash the card. So like you can put .js, and if you don't put .js, that's not any matter. So like this is the card component, and how we are going to call it. Just start with card and then just end it like that. If it is going to save, then you can find that this whatever we write here, we can see here, because we are just rendering that app here, this app component here, and inside that app we are calling that card component, and this card component shows something like this card. If you just cr, then it shows me. So like React use something known as hot reloading. That's why you are just, when you are just writing Control+F, it will just refresh the page, okay, for you. So this is how we can create a component. Now you may think like, what is the advantage of creating a component? The advantage is like, think of it, you want to use that component many times, so you can just Control+C and then Control+V. How many times you are going to want to use that component, you can use that. So that is the main reason why I told earlier that we can use React for components. Like I told about the example of Flipkart also. So like how they are going to list all the products. So we can do that also here. So you maybe think, okay, but it shows the same text. How I am able to change the data of the text? Okay, so React has something. Okay, let's show something how to do. There is a thing known as props in React, and what is props? Props is simply the way to change the data. So like if you had used image tag earlier or anchor tag earlier, a tag, that is the a tag. How do we show a link in any page? There is a attribute known as href, and what you do, you are simply changing that href value and whatever you put inside the a tag, and how many times you are going to call the a tag, it will simply create link for you. The same way, there is something known as props, and what this props does, it helps you to change the data. And how you can use that? So like there are so like there is a what React documentation says, that there is, you can, in the parameter, you pass something like props, and inside that, where you want to change that thing, you just uh, use that curly braces and call that props, and this is simply an object. There is a properties, and then dot, and if whatever the name of the prop. So like I am taking that name, okay, props dot name. So like now everything is gone. Now you think, what is happening? Inside the app.js, what I can do, what is the name of the props? So like just think of like the name of the props is name. So what I can do, I can just take call the attribute name, and like write my name inside it, and it show my name. And if I am change another name, and the name is like John, so like what it does, it gives us the power to change whatever value inside that attribute. So like Jane, okay, so like we can change the values here. This is the way that React shows us. Another, if you are want to create another props, then how we can create that? Like there is a, let's take an h2 tag, and inside that I want to like props dot age. I want to call something like age. Then how I can call that? Simple, this the same way. I just write age is equal to 22. age is equal to 30, 12. So like the age values also are going to change. Okay. So there is some of the developers feel that daunting to write that props and props.name, props.age. So what that does, if you know about ES6 destructuring, so they are just simply using the destructuring. So like whatever you passed inside here, this is simply the props. So what we can do, we can use the like destructuring syntax and object destructuring syntax, and what we can do, we can call that like name and age. And what it gives us, we don't need to call that props.name or props.age each places. We just are able to call the name and age. Okay. So it's up to you. Whatever syntax you want to use, you can use that. This is the object destructuring syntax, and another one is like how we can write a props, and then you just need to going to insert a props.name, age, and whatever stuff you're going to do. So this is what about props. So props are basically used to change the data of inside any component, whatever you call. Okay. Another thing is like if you want to use any, so like in the app.css, there are so much CSS that is written, and the convention is like whatever the name of the component, the same CSS file is going to present, like app.js. So that's why that app.css is compatible with app.js. Okay. So like you want to use that app.css inside app.js, how you can use that. So like in the app.js, you need to import. Okay. So like import not slash app.css. Okay. Now after that, no anything is not going to trigger. So in React, what happens that there are some of the tweaks that are simply changed. So like in HTML, what you write in class, simple classes. So like if I want to write some class, then I am going to write class. But in React, the convention is class name. Okay. And here in the app.css, there is a class name app. So like I simply put that class, and you can find that in app.css there is a text line center property here. And what we do, we're simply calling that class, but the little bit difference is that you have to write class name. So that is how we can import external CSS in React components. Okay. Another thing is we need to know how to write inline CSS in React. So like for like this H1, how I can write inline styling. So in normal cases, how we write, so like we are just call that style, and but in React, what we have to do, we have to write this way. So like the two brackets, and if the property is simple property like color, then we can write it like that, and it just changes the color to red. But if the property name consists two words like background color, simply take background color as a property. It takes two words like background dash color. All the properties that are present in that format are going to convert it into camel case. What is camel case? Like background, and that dash is going to remove, then the and after that whatever letter is present, that is going to be in capital letter. So like background capital C color, and like take that as blue, and that's it. And if you want to insert another CSS, then the color is like hashtag FFF. Okay. Okay. So like as we write is as object, so like we need to use commas. So how you can imagine that? Simply thought of like inside that curly braces, you are writing any JavaScript object. That is how you need to think about that. So like this is a background color blue, this is one object, and then color, then there's a value, another object. For Python developers, if there is any Python developer, you can think of it like your dictionaries. Okay. So that is how we can write inline styling. Now, after that, we are going to learn about something known as states in React. Okay, so this is a little bit complex topic for beginners. So like what is state? Simply in JavaScript, what you do, you just simply create a variable and you can change the variable in inside the file any places. You can change the variable, the value of the variable. But what React have something known as a concept of states. Okay, so like the basic state is known as useState hook. This is a hook that is going to used in React. And what is states? States is simply a central place from where you can. So like let's think of this value 22. Right now, if I want, I just create a variable and just store the value there and just change that value from anywhere inside the code. But what React does, puts that value inside a restriction, and what it does that if you want to change the value, you always need to call a certain function to change the value. Without calling that function, you are not able to change the value. That is how you want. That is the basic concept of states. Okay, so mm, let's call. So like how we are going to understand that the best way is, so let's create another component. Counter.js. Okay, and the same way const counter return okay, let's take 10. And then there is export default counter. Okay, and what we are going to do, we are going to call this counter inside that app. So VS Code has many tweaks, so like you can just call that counter. Okay, import counter from dot slash. Okay, dot slash components slash counter dot counter. Okay, and I'm going to call that. Okay, so like I'm just calling that. So for right now, I just comment out this part. So like we can understand how the states are going to work. So like let's make. So like we are going to just build a simple counter and understand how it's going to work. Okay. So like this is one thing, value. If I can also do something like I am just create a variable, store that value 10 there, and just uh, so what we do here, this is known as the interpolation. We can do that, okay, in React. Now how we are going to use states. So like for that you need to import that use state thing. So like import use state. So you can do something like also use state. Okay. So I just imported that use state from React. So this React is so like why the curly braces is present. It means that it's not a default export. So like when we are import React from React, we don't put any curly braces because that is the default export from that file. And these are not the default export. That's why we have to put curly braces around them. Okay. Now how we are going to, we want this value to change. So like how we can do that, how we can declare a state. So like this const, we have to put it in an array format, and that is the convention is like whatever you put the name of the variable, and the second parameter is a function that changes the value. I told earlier that you don't you just don't go to the counter and change the value of that. You have to use some functions to change the value. So that is the name. The second parameter is a function, and the convention is to put set before the name of the variable. So like this is a count. The name of the variable is going to be set count. If this is a the name of the variable is number, then the function is set number. Okay, and after that you have to call that use state and just the curly braces, and whatever you put inside this is the initial value of count. So like if I'm just put 0, the what it means, it's simply thought of it like count is equal to 0. Okay, so like you are just have a variable which is count and you just put 0 inside it. Okay, and I just want to use that count value here. So like you can see the value 0 here. If I just put 10, so like it shows the value 10 right now. Okay, this is the use statement. Now, what is this set count thing does? So like just thought of it like value 10 is put inside count. Okay, let's create see how this thing is going to use. So like let's take a button, and this button is have okay. This button is add, and this button. So this is a button. So like let's add some inline styling. So like with 20 pixel. Okay, I just don't put 200 pixel, and then the background color just yellow. Okay, so like this is a ugly looking button because this is not a CSS class. So like I don't show you how to write CSS. Okay, now when we are just clicking the button, nothing happens. So like how we can do that in React? So like there is a event in normal HTML. There is a click event. In React, that event name is onClick. Okay, so like everything in React is simply works in like camel case. You can see that. So like in onClick event, what it does, I want what I want. Whenever I click that add button, I just want to increment that value of 10. Okay, so like how we can do that? We can call there are many ways you can do that. One way is just call a callback function, and what I told that we have to use this set count. So like I cannot just run that count plus plus. It just doesn't increment the value. What we need to do, we need to call that set count function, and we need to increment that count plus plus or count plus 1. Okay, so what I told that whatever that take the value of count and just add 1 with it. Now if you can see that, so like when I just click the button, it increments the value of the count. So now you can understand what is like a state. So if I want to change the value of count, earlier in JavaScript, what we can do, I just go the value, I just take the value of count is equal to count plus 1, I can do that. But in React we cannot do that because as it says state. So if you want to change the value of a state, we need to use that set state function. Okay, so this is one way. Another way is just you can create a function like const add. So like add is another one function, and what this function return, and what this function does, it calls the set count function, takes the value of count and add plus 1 with it. Okay, sorry. So let's write normal functions here. Okay, what I can do, I just can call that set count here, add also. So like if I am just click here that, so the same way I can create another function. The name of the function is subtract or like multiply, and I just want to multiply it with 3, and I just create another button. Okay, Control C, and the name of the function button is multiply. Sorry for the typos that I make. Okay. So let's check. So like this is now the value, whatever the value of count it takes, and just multiply with it 3. So like if I am to multiply with 2, 20, 30, 40, and if I just add, it adds 1 with it. Okay, this is how the use state hook works. So for the beginners, it may sound a little hard at first, but it is something that React uses to it. So like you can think about where that is these things are used. So like if you see what if you use like in your Facebook web app, if you just open the Facebook web app and any new messages or LinkedIn apps, anything, any new messages when came, what it does, it doesn't reload the whole page. It simply add 1 or 2, whatever the number of messages that are came to you, and just add onto that messenger icon or whatever the messages icon on the top of that. So that is where the states is used. So like whenever new messages added, or whenever someone sends you a new message, this just update the number of messages or amount of messages on that there. And what it helps, that you can see like normally what happens whenever we just change anything in the whole page reloads. But what it does, like when I click that, nothing are going to change. It just simply changes this value. So that is one advantage of using states. Okay, so this is one thing, one state. And the last state that I am going to discuss, that is the use effect. So this is also a little bit tricky. And another thing is like how you are going to learn about them. So like there is the official React website is reactjs dot. So this is the website, like reactjs.org. Just go there. You can find all the things there. So like if you want to learn about use state, so this is the use state hook, documentation of use state hook, how we can use it. So all the documentations is there. So they also create an counter. You can see that how they are going to create that. Okay. So like, and the next thing is I'm going to show that is the use effect hook. What is use effect hook? Use effect hook is simply the one which creates the side effect of any event. So like if you are came from another background, and if you are used Vue or Angular earlier, you know that there are some of the, so like what it does, it creates a side effect. Like if you simply thought of like this, like uh, whenever you reply to a message, the whatever the UI of the message, it adds a new message there. So the same way, what use effect does, use effect, you can use this use effect hook to any places. Like when if you want to do some run some of the functions at the start of your program, or if you want to like run some do something whenever something is changed here, change something is updated in the page, then you can use this use effect too. So like how we can call this, so this we have to import that use effect also. So like use effect, and how we are going to use that, so we are going to need to call that use effect hook, and that use effect hook used a callback function. Okay, and what this callback function does, whatever you write inside that callback function, it is just going to run that function each time whenever something is updated. So like the if you know bare minimum HTML, you know that there is a thing like document.title. what it does, it simply add the title at the top of the page. So like I want to add like one. If I just do that, it changes the value one here. Okay. So like what I want each time. So this is a string interpolation syntax. So this syntax is used whenever you want to add any like JavaScript inside a string. So like I want to add count and then the dollar sign. If you know just JavaScript, you know that how to write this syntax. And what I want to put that count. And so like now you can see that. So what I told earlier that whatever I write inside that use effect loop, it's gonna execute at that at the first. Also, whenever I update something inside a page, update something means like update any change in states or something, it also updates the value here. Also executes the function whatever you write inside the use effect. So like if I just click the add function, now you can see I update the value to 11, it also executes this line. Whenever I add the 12 and 13, it just updates the value there. If I just multiply the value, click the multiply value, it also changes the value there. So this is the use effect too. So it's mainly used for like when you want to do something browser API or call some functions or some APIs calls you can make. You want to use that use effect too also. Okay. So that's I think these are the like what these are the I think the basics that you need to know React at first. So there are many things as well in React. You can just go to their website and you can find all the things. I just put this inside the chat. Okay. So these are all the things that you need to know for React as a beginner. So like that's it. So like now, if anyone have any questions, then you can ask me. So do you have any questions, Tejus?
Not till now, but is there any doubt anyone is having? You can open Q&A here. I don't know how it looks on the user
Sure.
end. Yeah, we just started. So what do you think? Like, how was this session? And do you have any question regarding hooks or the basic of React? How to install probably, or maybe some difference between Angular, Vue, and React?
Another thing I want to tell that there is something when you just visit in React website, you can see there are some of the syntax that is like function there are some of the syntax where you can find the class syntax there. So this is the old syntax how the earlier React was written. Right now React is use something like function. So if you want, you can just learn it, but it's little like hard for a beginner to just understand how this because before that you need to learn object-oriented programming JavaScript also. So you can do that also, but the best way right now is to learn React with functions, like how we write right now. Okay. So like, is
Now
it
we have a
required to
question.
learn JavaScript because React? Yes, you need to learn JavaScript because this is the like the fundamental requirement. You need to learn HTML, CSS, and JavaScript before learning React.
Yeah, okay, great. Any more question do we have? Okay, I think that's all for now, but definitely you can connect to me or Debajit on LinkedIn or probably Twitter, and we would love
Okay,
to answer
sure.
some more questions. Yeah,
Okay, I just then put my LinkedIn in the chat. Mhm.
yeah, that
So
will be
like if
great.
anyone want to. So like you can reach me out there also. Like if you have any questions.
Great. So I think that's all for now. Thank you all for joining us today. I hope you all
Thank
learned
you
something
guys.
new and going to become better in React. And I would like to thanks Debajit for joining and sharing your learning. And also thanks to NetJS Developer Community India and GDG Bhopal, the Internet Folks and Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador. And also I will be sharing some of our social media links and our Discord channel that you can join. And I would we would love to be in touch with you, and you can ask any question there, and we'll be having more sessions uh, soon. So hope to see you all there. Yep, and there is a feedback form also. Yeah, so we would love to hear more from you, how we can improve, and what you liked about the session. How likely are you going to share it with your friend, and if there is something we can help you with in the future session, right? So please mention it there, and we would love to help you. Okay, so bye bye. Any more question by now? Cool. So, bye bye, everyone. Sayonara.
Okay. Okay, Tejas, like feedback is not accepting the response. Yes.